Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 23rd, 2018 Cumberland County Commissioners Workshop meeting. Would everyone please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. And this time I'd like to open up the floor to any public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move to agenda item number 3, employee recognition. I'll call on Commissioner DiPolito to present Heather Dwyer with a 20-year service.
Oh, that's nice. Just for attention.
We'll be that way. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are celebrating Heather's 20 years of service with the county. She was hired in August 1998 as a department clerk 2 in children and youth, and then in February 2000 transferred to our aging department as department clerk 2. Heather, thank you very much for your 20 years of service. We appreciate it. Feel free to say anything or say anything if you'd like to say anything.
Thanks for keeping me around so
Oh, yeah. It's been easy. It's been easy. You wonder what a department clerk 2 or an administrative assistant, I'm not sure what her real title is at this point, we figured that out. But I would say that Heather does a lot of different things, and it's thanks to Heather that seniors in Cumberland County have access to the farmers market vouchers, which she is in charge of distributing every year throughout the county, as well as she is very kind of in the background, but very supportive with the Senior Olympics, or no, the Senior Games every year, the older adult spelling bee, volunteer recognition, and keeps us straight at the advisory board. Yes.
If I might,
Sure.
I say as the liaison to the aging advisory board, every office needs a Heather Dwyer. Okay, I mean, Heather, I've gained a lot of respect for all that she does, but she's the glue that helps to hold things together, and she's also the person that helps to make sure things get done. So we appreciate your service and many more years.
Yes. She's young enough to have babies too.
Thank you very much for that. Have a great day. Agenda item number 4, I'd like to call on Mr. Andrew Giorgione. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right. To discuss the Cumberland County Industrial Development Authority Articles of Amendment.
Thank you.
Good
Good morning,
day.
Commissioners. My name is Andrew Giorgione. I'm an attorney with the County Ingersoll Rudy. I'm the solicitor for the Cumberland County Industrial Development Authority. A few weeks back, we were contacted by representatives of Messiah College about a potential bond transaction where the authority would serve as a conduit issuer of bonds on behalf of the college. And I'll come back to you and tell you a little bit about that transaction because I'm sure it'll pique your interest. But I looked at our articles of incorporation and amendment that were filed back in the late 90s. And the useful life of the authority is only another 28 years, and its potential bond yield is 30 to 35. So we need to extend the life of the authority. That's done by a resolution of the IDA, then a resolution by this body because you created the authority, and then there's public notice put in the Sentinel and the Cumberland Law Journal, and then the articles and the resolution and the notice and proof of publications then submitted to the Department of State to extend the life. And so the resolution was approved by our board last month. I provided copies of all the draft documents which I prepared, both our resolution, the notice, the articles of amendment, and of course, a county notice to your solicitor last week, when he asked me to appear here today to do that. The life of the authority currently expires in 2046. I know that seems like a long way off, but again, it's only 28 years. This would extend us out until 58 or 68, I think. So it'd be 50 years from this year, 2018. The transaction itself came upon us fairly quickly 3 weeks ago. It's an interesting transaction and fairly sizable. We got a call from potential bond counsel and the underwriter to talk about it. So Messiah College has been amassing some land over the last 20 years. And they have decided to privately develop that land, not into student housing or anything related to college use, but to generate revenue in order to maintain as good a credit fee as they can and make college affordable. And so they have a large plan for the acreage to develop into housing that they would lease and sell and generate revenue for the college. They've created a commercial entity called Ryder Musser Development LLC to do that. They've hired a contractor, they've done plans, and they've done enough work through their underwriter, who by the way is Linda Aramita, who you probably know. She's been around for a long time. She's with George Bauman in Pittsburgh, who by the way is also a trustee of the board of Messiah, that they believe they can sell 30, 35-year bonds in order to develop the project and have that issued through the IDA. That bond deal we expect to have documents in front of our board next month on September 12th at our board meeting, and it closed sometime in late September. So it is a little bit of a compressed time frame. The action to extend the life of the authority is not terribly significant or troublesome. And of course, the bond deal, we would only be a conduit, so nothing would come back on either the authority or this county. The structure would be that the Messiah entity, this private entity that they created, and this would be a taxable bond issue, obviously, because it's not a public purpose, it would be a private activity, would then go back on that entity, and the college's, as I understand the structure at this point, is providing a 50% guarantee in order to sell the bonds. So, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
I do have a question, because we do have another authority, Cumberland County Authority, that we, that entities, educational institutions have utilized for bond financing. Keith, can you talk about that other authority and what the difference is between this project, that project? Do we know? Or
What is municipal?
Oh, you're Cumberland County Municipal. Is that what it is? Municipal?
Frankly, I can't speak to that. I apologize. I don't know that much about that other authority. I don't know how that's been used in the past. I can't compare the two.
I know we've had, I think, I'm trying to think which educational institutions have utilized that. In any event,
I believe Dickinson has, but I think that was the tax status was different on that. I think that's one of the key differences.
That only qualifies as tax exempt bonds.
okay, so that's the, so they finance taxes.
Not necessarily, but that was that example, if I recall Dickinson correctly. They need your approval as the county.
Well, anyway, if we got maybe get a clarification on that. I don't think I have any objections to this. And one of the things is that this doesn't obligate the county in any way financially at all.
No way, shape, or form, or the authority for that matter.
Okay.
Just a pure conduit.
You're going to be around in 2068?
I sure hope not.
Andrew, we haven't seen the actual amendment. Keith, you have.
I have, yes. It's very standard.
It's very standard. All you're doing is extending it. Right.
Yeah, Vince will be around in 2068.
Yeah.
It looks pretty healthy.
You guys didn't say anything about me.
Gary, you're going to be here forever.
Andrew, I have no questions.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, the project, is it contiguous to the campus, or is it?
Yeah, I believe so. As I understand it, because of the name, it was the Ryder Farm, it was the Musser Farm, and there was one other farm that they also had bought over the years. It's kind of a famous name, but I can't remember, but yeah, it's right near the campus, yeah. I think they anticipate too that the housing that they will develop, well, it won't be used by students, it might be used by professors and staff because of the proximity to the college and what they're planning on building.
What type of housing? Is it single family?
I think it's a little bit of everything,
A little bit of.
yep,
Is that Upper Allen Township?
yep.
All just plain residential zoning, no mixed use or anything.
No, yep, and of course taxable, so wouldn't be tax exempt, so you generate revenue, tax revenue. Keith, do you need to send documents for signature and have some?
If they're the same ones you gave me, they'll be signed, just the resolution.
Yeah.
Actually, we'd like that done on Monday.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so will
Time-wise.
they vote on it today, or what, do you want me to come back for a?
You don't have to come back, but
Okay.
they'll vote on approving the resolution on Monday.
That'd be
That's
great.
acceptable to the board.
Right, we have not seen documents yet. So, yeah, we'll plan that for Monday.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move to item number 5. We have Shireen Farr here to discuss a letter of support for the Real Estate Collaborative Domestic Task. Ms. Farr, good morning.
Good morning. So I'm here today requesting the commissioners provide a letter of support that can accompany an application to the state for an industrial sites reuse application. This will be the second one that we're going after to obtain the domestic testing site. And it is to help cover the remediation costs that are associated with this project, some vapor barrier issues, some contaminated soils that were identified in the initial assessment. The initial assessment was funded by ISR dollars. It's a 75-25, so the request that's being asked of the state, the amount of 48,55 is the 75% amount share that the state would be contributing towards the second. Once funded, we expect to be funded because it's a continuation of a project that was already approved by the state. It would take about 2 to 4 weeks for them to hopefully approve it. We would get work done. It's about a 13 to 16 week remediation process. And that would get us to Act 2 residential clearance with DEP that would then allow us to begin to go through a land development process for application.
Our chances for the grant look pretty good then? Is what
Yes.
It's 48,000 what we're seeking, is that right?
48,55 would be the share of the contribution. The total amount of the remediation cost is 65,140. So the difference would be made up, it's considered a local match. Okay.
Make sure.
Thank you.
Can this wait until Monday? Or?
Yes. And I'm ready to come back Monday on it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll move to agenda item number 6, and Ms. Moyle on contracts and grants.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. We'll begin with agenda item 6, Roman numeral 1, A through C, which are existing contracts. Contract extensions or amendments with no additional cost or increase to the county. They include the following: 4 agreements for aging and community services, 5 agreements for children and youth, and 8 agreements for MHIVD. Commissioners, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding any of the above-mentioned agreements? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 6, Roman numeral 2, which consists of new contracts, vendors, services, grants, and contracts with increases and decreases to the county. We are going to be taking agenda item I, which is a sheriff's agreement. Jody has a commitment that she has to get to. And so I will be calling on Jody to discuss the agreement between Big Spring School District and the Sheriff's Department regarding the school resource officer. Jody?
Good morning, everyone. I believe you've had a chance to review the agreement between the county and the Sheriff's Office and the Big Spring School District. This will continue the service of the current SRO that we have in place in that school district and the high school for an additional 5 years, and it will also allow for the assignment of a second deputy who school and elementary schools as an SRO for 5 years, and the agreement covers the services that will be provided as well as costs that are associated with it. Do you have any questions? We hope to have it in place the second SRO by January 1st, or as of January 1st in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, this is more or less a follow-up to an action that the board previously approved.
Yes.
With some modifications, minor modifications made by the school district solicitor. So, I reviewed it, I had no problem with it. I think that, and then, of course, we're still, apparently there was an error by the General Assembly in the definition of school resource officer that hopefully will be corrected.
Yes, it's my
So that this agreement can be fully implemented.
I'm fine, Jimmy.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. We'll move on to agenda item A, and begin by calling on Joan Paul to discuss the 3 agreements for neighboring community services. Joan?
I really done this by video conferencing, so I'm not sure what the protocol is for the city. Very simple. One is for Unique Aid, which is a personal care and home support services. They've given an increase of 30 cents from last year's contract. The next one is adult daycare services are for Cumberland and Perry counties. Their increase is $1.90 from last year's contract. And the third one is a actual pass-through funding for our lake services. It's a state-funded issue, and that increase is $6,800.
Are there any questions for Joan? Thank you, Joan. Next, I'll call on Jamie Weaver to discuss the agreement between Children in Need and Concern. Jamie?
Morning, Commissioners. This is our 17-18 contract with Concern. They were a little late getting their packet approved by the state this year. They did ask for a 1% increase across the board with their foster care and group home programs. However, at this point, we're only using their group home program. The rate for them is $205.29 a day. That's below the state maximum approved, and also below most of our other group home rates.
Commissioner, any questions for James? Thank you, James. Next, I'll call on Heather Raising to discuss the advocacy agreements. Heather?
Yes, we are hoping to get a subscription software package for Abacus, which is a whole management system for our quality assurance, performance improvement. Next year, with the requirements of participation with the federal regulations, it brings the governing body into having a role, an active role within quality assurance. The system will allow for that. Also, it will give us continuous survey readiness where we can do our own mock surveys within the facility. It also has marketing applications which we can use for the hospitals and the MCOs. And it also addresses customer and employee satisfaction.
Any questions for Heather?
What's being used today? Is there anything?
No.
We do have for mock surveys, Premier was providing service.
Oh, correct, for that piece.
Heather's evaluation was, see that you've previously used Abacus.
Previously used Abacus. One of the neat things with it, it has all the CMS, what we call critical element pathways, but it has the same software that the surveyors use. And so it'll drive our risks, showing us what potential F tags would be prior to survey that we can put corrective actions and identify any gaps in the systems.
You see this as a significant improvement over
I
the
do.
services that we were getting from Premier and Mara's actually.
And I do, because with the new regulations, it drives it down to the facility identifying their own issues. It brings the line staff into that process because you get participation at every level, assisting in it. So it also teaches the staff and the line staff the regulations. at the same time. Instead of somebody just coming in and saying, here's what's wrong, fix it, it increases our awareness and our education throughout the whole process of performing. It also has our whole quality assurance plan driven in there along with what's called the facility assessment. CMS has averaged that facility assessment on paper should average 40 to 60 hours of work time. It's built into this system, and it should take the facility about 2 hours to properly assess that because it pulls all the data for you. You're not going out to manually search for it.
So is this is a private company, right? Private company package?
It is a private company. It's also associated with one of our vendors, and we could have gotten a discount, but we would have had to sign we purchase so much of our product from them, and we can't do that. So we are paying the higher rate, which is still $600 a month. It wasn't a substantial, I believe that's the right rate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
$635.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, this is intended to keep us up to date with respect to regulations. Right?
Correct.
So this entity, essentially, that's what they do, is they constantly keep a track of what, state and federal, or just federal, or what?
It's the federal aspect side of it which our survey that we go through is, although we have state tags we deal with, but it pulls that whole thing in. It also, I spoke to Brad King yesterday because there's new regulations and surveys with emergency preparedness, and it has those modules built into for his they're not F tags, for his tags on that side of K tags and life safety and emergency prep.
Do you have any comments on this?
I've used it before.
Okay.
And it's essentially said it very well stated. It's the questions the surveyors are going to ask the residents and families.
It's a preventive type of thing.
It also sounds cheaper than a consultant.
Yeah.
Well, that was another question I wanted to ask was, so I'm assuming this is in the budget or replacing what we had previously budgeted for Premier or whatever. Is it more expensive or less expensive?
Less expensive, I believe.
I would believe for one visit the one consulting visit probably paid for it.
Trying to add it up in my head, it's substantially less expensive.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, I'd like to call Melissa Smith to discuss the grant and agreement for CMRC. Melissa?
Actually,
Oh, Bob, can I do it? Okay.
I'm not Melissa, but good morning. We're proud to announce that we have received a grant to the amount of $8,971 from the Department of Human Services for a multi-sensory environmental project. We applied to DHS, and we were only one of 40 applicants that was chosen for the project. This will allow us to improve our dementia care. The program will help to reduce agitation brought on by confusion in our dementia population, and will also enable us to reduce pharmacological intervention whenever possible. That's very, very important. The days of snowing somebody to keep them calm are well over, and this will help us with that. So it involves equipment and a spot for using the equipment and training. Two staff members will be certified as trainers and then train the rest of the staff in Heritage Harbor. So this is very important. It's very nice to get this award. This, by the way, is paid for by fines that are levied by the Department of Health on nursing homes for efficient practices. So, I apologize, I don't have our history of paying fines. I don't think it's very significant at all. But the opportunity to work for other places that have paid significant fines, so this is returning some of that back.
It's nice to see that fines are being put to constructive
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
I just want to thank you, Bob, for that. I appreciate that. But I want to compliment Melissa Smith because it was, I think, through Melissa's hard work.
Absolutely.
We met the deadline to get this grant.
Yeah.
So I think she deserves our hats off, if you will. But this is great, and I think it can help out significantly in our dementia.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If I could just say, there's a corresponding press release that we are tracking through on this award.
And next, I'd like to call on Carl Rice to discuss the PCCG grant award for ICTO.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm wearing a different hat this morning. I'm here to ask you to accept the new grant award from PCCD for intermediate punishment programs for 2018 through 2020 in the amount of $628,708. Apparently, the vets broke out around $116,000 goes to treatment, about $10,500 goes to drug testing, 27%, and another 27% goes to 2 staff members for drug testing, paid 100% salary benefits for 2 POs, and 10.5% of salary benefits for an additional PO.
Are there any questions for us?
I don't know if you can answer this, but do you know how this compares to what we received last year?
Rebecca said it's down slightly, but she didn't tell me how much. I can certainly find that out and back to you all for
We're glad to get the grant. Thank you.
I would also like to say that year to date, out of all the criminal dockets filed, 21% have been directed, to the intermediate punishment program for disposition. So it is definitely making an impact, especially at the jail.
Help to keep our prison population down.
Trying to manage. Anything else?
Thank you, next, Yvonne Swarmer is joining us via video teleconferencing to discuss the waste management agreement for facilities. Yvonne?
Good morning. This is for the waste management contract. It's an existing contract. It's an addendum to just add the 1615 Rittner Highway building to that contract.
Are there any questions for Yvonne?
Is that in addition to $910.20?
Yes.
Because the old contract and the new contract is the same number.
Right. It's for the same size dumpster as other locations per their contract.
Good point.
Yeah, but we're paying for another dumpster, so the total contract should be a higher amount, correct? I think it's just a typo somewhere, you didn't put in somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's probably a typo on that. I did not notice that, but yes, it is.
Correct if you want me.
Okay.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call on Linda McCullough to discuss the MHIDD agreements, which consist of 13 agreements for fiscal year 2018-19 intellectual and developmental disabilities, 2 agreements for fiscal year 2018-19 mental health, and 1 agreement for fiscal year 2017-18 early intervention. Linda?
As you know, our rates are set by the state, so we have no say in if our contracts go up or down, and that's all based on what the needs are of our consumers. So some of these contracts went up slightly, some of them went down slightly, depending on rates and the consumers that are there. For mental health, that's for the IDD. For the mental health, these are just to Cumberland County Prison, we pay for part of somebody's salary. It went down slightly, $15, which surprised me because I figured salaries would go up. So, and the other one is for services that Riverside does for us on an outpatient basis. And finally, a 1718, I thought we had her contract well managed, and she sent me one more bill that we had to pay. So this is to cover the bill, the final billing of this provider for 1718.
Any questions for Linda, Commissioner?
big changes here, but it's all based on the amount of services.
It's based on the amount of services, yeah, that the consumers are, because all of that goes through the state system where we do their plan and then it comes back with the total cost. And IDD is one of those that it's easy for me to do a contract because I can actually look in the system and see exactly how many base state-funded consumers we will be paying for and what the cost is going to be. And as their needs change, as things change, I can go back in the system and that's where we come up with our addendums for those contracts if needed.
Thank you, Linda. And agenda item G, Commissioner Park could not join us today due to another commitment. He did provide you with information regarding the Orange Bridge utility agreements prior to the meeting. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding any information that he has provided that needs to be addressed before Monday's BOC meeting? Okay.
I think we've seen all this before, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll move on to agenda item H, and Carl again to discuss the agreement between Keith Commissary Services and the prison.
The Commissioners, our current inmate commissary provider is Keith Commissary Services. That agreement is about to expire. And we're requesting to enter into a new agreement with those folks. Keith has now become CoStar's affiliated. So really, the only changes in the agreement, there's three major areas. Number one, they're asking for a 5-year agreement instead of 3. Secondly, the commission rate will be reduced. We receive commissions off of gross commissary sales, would be reduced from 48.75% down to 40%. And a third change would be entering into a new program called Secure Pack with Keith, where an inmate's family or friends have the ability on the outside to purchase a commissary order for the inmate online through Keith using our menu. And then it would get delivered with the regular order, and we would still receive commissions off that. Any questions with regard to that?
So explain the latter there.
Secure Pack?
Yeah, is this like paroled inmates or?
No. So I'm locked up, you're my dad.
Okay.
Okay, you don't trust the way I spend money when you put it in my account, so you can actually be able to go online and buy me soap, shampoo, writing paper, and pencils, and what have you, purchase that, and pay Keith directly. And then that order will get delivered with the regular commissary order, but we're still gonna get the commissions off of that commissary order.
Got it. Are you happy? How long we have been Keith?
We are, we're just concluding our first 3-year agreement with them, and we've been a very good relationship.
We're satisfied.
Always. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Earl. See, that's all I have.
All right, great. We'll go to item number 7. I believe we have Bob Ames is going to be discussing 3 CNRC policy.
To meet state and federal requirements, we have to post in the facility a notice of non-discrimination. We serve any and all folks. The statement of equal opportunity employment, equal employment opportunity, and also our admissions statement that we admit folks in that regard to ancestry, age, sex, religious creed, and anything like that. Those are required to be posted and signed by the commissioner and myself. Hopefully you have one that I saw and you guys just need to sign and be posted in the facility.
Any questions, commissioners? Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Now, is that something requiring action on Monday, Keith, or?
I thought you usually approve those policies.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an ongoing. It just, the only change made actually is mine in the month. Yeah. As current administrator.
So we would do that today? Good, no, Monday, all right.
Do it Monday.
Okay. I'd like to call on Claudia Gardner, who's joining us, I believe, by video teleconferencing to update on donations for the 2018 Sarah Summit. Claudia?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Public Safety is asking for the Board of Commissioners to approve sponsorship money from Members First as part of the LEPC Sarah Summit that will be held here in October. We're proud to bring on another local business to help support this effort, where area businesses, first responders, and elected officials will have an opportunity to come and network with their partners while learning how to be prepared for an emergency before it would happen. Their sponsorship is $250, and they will be bringing 2 additional representatives, so their check amount is for $300. Any questions?
You've got a number of contributions now for this.
We have. Connie Heckert and the LEPC Planning Committee has been working really hard to obtain sponsorships so we can keep our cost out of the general fund to a minimum.
That's great.
Yeah, our goal was to achieve 1/3 of the sponsorship level to match the expenses, and I believe they're at half already.
Well, great. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much, Claudia.
All right, have a good day.
Yeah. All right, that takes us to item number 9, which is the Cumberland County Library System. Carolyn Blatchley was not able to join us, but previously she had sent future task group applications, as well as recommendations from the library board regarding membership. And I believe that this is up for commissioner discussion and or direction and a decision of appointment either now or in the future regarding the formation of this group.
The one observation I had was, I noticed when she transmitted this to us, that she noted that at least one of the applicants was left off the recommended list simply because of, she was in Franklin County, I believe. That looked like a very good applicant, and I personally don't believe that the issue of location matters here. It's more important we have the right kind of people than that they be within our boundaries. So I think it would be good if we transmitted that note, that if we're in agreement, I think that would be good for that to go back to Carolyn to see if that would change the recommendations in any way.
Yeah, she has recommended 8 people, the 9th person remaining to be identified. But the individual you're talking about, Harry, is not one of those 8. So yeah, if we could ask her a question, why was the location taken out of the matter?
I don't have any particular issue with it, especially considering the fact that a number of Franklin County residents, utilize the Shippensburg Library in particular, which is, so if that's, the individual lives like in the Shippensburg area, and I would think, I don't care so much either about the boundary situation,
So if we find that information out, the commissioner's desire to consider putting forward these 9 on Monday?
Would be 8.
8, well, if we add that one.
So,
Well, no, we wouldn't be adding anybody.
I guess the question is, would this, if we
Change.
if they're willing to consider this individual, if they're okay with that, are we going to displace one of the other recommendations? So, I'm sorry, do we ask for 8? Is that what the framework of the organization is?
9.
9?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and they've submitted how many? It's 8. So we can simply add the 1 without.
Well, the one that's missing, representing member libraries, they have 2 people, and there's 1 additional library staff member yet to be identified. So I don't know if this other person is a library staff member or not.
I don't believe she was.
Yeah. So yes, it might displace one of the other recommendations.
I think the question back to Carol is if that restriction, the residency restriction is lifted, does that change their recommendations at all?
Okay. Any other questions for clarification?
That's the only one I had.
No, it says here in the, let's just look at the memo again, the future task group, we're talking about would consist of at least 9 members, so I assume that suggests that there could be more than 9. So, in any event, we get some clarification on Commissioner Eichelberger's requesting, I wouldn't have a problem in moving forward on Monday.
Okay. I believe she's been working with a subcommittee, so hopefully she can turn that around on consideration. I also understand that the board does have the final decision on this. Board of Commissioners.
So we have final.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. That'll take us into Commissioner's liaison reports. Commissioner DeFilippo.
Yes, I have one for this time, and it is for the county library system. We met Monday, and a few highlights is they had 8 staff, 8 of our library staff attend technology accessibility training. Mental health, day-to-day functions. There was a widget added to the website in order to provide a summary of library hours for the day, holidays, and closing. The future task group, which we just discussed, they forwarded their names for consideration. 7 Kindles were purchased for STAR, which was grant funded. 5 of them were Kindle e-readers and 2 Kindle Fires, and all the related peripherals were included. In addition, preliminary draft budget is in process. And there were also additional information. As you know, the library system has to move. We already have 2 lease proposals, and there could be more, so they're well on the way. We had a Kronos update. They went live August 19th. Everything went well, which is good. They also purchased some self-checkout equipment and licensing, and so far their estimated savings by doing this is about $8,000. Regina Robinson has been hired as cataloging librarian. Regina started with the library system back in 2005 as a processor. Legislative breakfast they are having on October 31st at the Boston Library. So that's it for the library.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hertzler.
Okay, thanks, Steve. The Housing Redevelopment Authority boards met on Thursday, August 16th, and among actions, the Redevelopment Authority approved a special agreement with our county's MHIDD office to provide housing and family support services to persons with intellectual or developmental disabilities in emergency situations. As of this month, the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program for low-income citizens in our county is helping 1,193 families that pay their rent. The wait list for the program, based on the lack of sufficient funding from the federal government, totals 987 from just within our county. The Housing Authority Board, meanwhile, authorized the submission of its annual Section 8 Management Assessment Program to HUD, which governs the selection of individuals from the wait list for housing choice voucher assistance. Those policies provide preference for working families, single-parent households with children under 6, those who are disabled or elderly, persons in transitional housing or domestic violence shelters, persons certified by Cumberland County Children and Youth Services who are in need of adequate housing to maintain custody of or to be reunited with their children, young people who have aged out of the foster care system, and those within the MHIDD community who are transitioning from community living arrangements or temporary living arrangements. There's also a Cumberland County residency preference, income eligibility guidelines, and applicants are maintained on the wait list in order of preference and date and time sequence. In other words, there's a lot of rules with the goal of providing limited resources for rental assistance to those who need it most. In addition to the lack of sufficient funding from HUD to meet demand, we are facing in this county the additional challenge of rising rents overall, which inflates the amount of voucher assistance needed for program participants and reduces the ability to assist more of those on the wait list. The Housing Redevelopment Authority boards at their August 16 meeting also received an update through June 30 of the progress made on goals outlined in their strategic plan. If my colleagues are interested in looking at that, I'd be happy to share it with them. The Agricultural Land Preservation Board met yesterday morning at Allen Road. Good number of things to report. The 8 farms selected for preservation in the 2017 program, totaling 836 acres, are all nearing settlement before the end of the year. As I understand, we're just awaiting checks from the state. The board, meanwhile, approved the extension of offers, or extending offers for the preservation of 12 farms, totaling 975 acres, for the 2018 program year. Once the farms from 2017 and 2018 are settled, we will have reached the milestone of having preserved in this county over 20,000 acres of prime farmland. For the second time, one of the farms that's being preserved is being preserved with the help of Silver Spring Township's preservation program. The Yeager Farm, 50 acres in both Silver Spring and Middlesex Townships, is being preserved by a 50-50 cost split between the county and Silver Spring Township for that portion of the farm, which is 42.7 acres that's located in Silver Spring Township. The board voted to memorialize the partnership between the county and Silver Spring Township with an agreement to split the cost of the easement on this farm. We also heard that there are potentially 2 other farms in Silver Spring Township where a similar arrangement could occur in the future. There was also significant discussion surrounding consideration of all efforts to achieve a bigger bang for the buck, to preserve more farms within the framework of limited resources, and approval was given to a proposal to leverage additional funding by amending board policy at the discretion of the board to allow for a so-called bargain sale on farms that may not be scored in the top 50% of ranked farms, which is a requirement of existing policy. A bargain sale is where the farm is preserved with the county paying 50% or less of the easement value, with the remainder donated by the landowner or contributed by another entity. There was an update regarding the Lancaster Farmland Trust project. Trust personnel are now planning and in the process of going farm to farm visits, primarily with those owned by members of the plant set community. And finally, there was a discussion of the Ag Board's budget request for the 2019 budget year. With the goal established by the Ag Board, as requested by this board 2 years ago, of seeking to preserve 50% of ag prime area per the future land use map over 20 years. That land use map is in our comprehensive plan, which would be a total of farm acres preserved of 45,000 acres by the year 2036, there would need to be a significant infusion of additional dollars now and into the future. In fact, much more than the $1 million that the Agricultural Land Preservation Board has requested us to consider for appropriation for the 2019 program year. In fact, to achieve the 50% preservation goal by 2036, as recommended by the Agricultural Land Preservation Board, there would be a need to preserve nearly 1,400 acres annually each year over the next 18 years. As the program is currently structured, a $1 million county contribution for 2019 with a state match of better than $2 million would enable the preservation of about 1,024 acres in 2019, not 1,400 acres. The point is, the $1 million request, about a little less than 1.5% of our total county budget, which is the same as the Ag Board's request of last year, is not all that out of line. If we're interested in doing all that we can in preserving our county's rich farmland before too much of it is lost forever. But I understand that we need to have a further discussion on this subject as part of the overall consideration of a new budget for 2019. This morning, I'm just relaying the Ag Board's duly considered request. And as I said last year, I believe the Ag Board's recommendation deserves this board's serious consideration as we consider all budget priorities for 2019. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Eichelberger?
I do have one question on that. The farm that was listed specifically as being 50 acres. Now, one of the major objectives of the program is to assemble acreage contiguously because that's what's needed for it to be preserved as a going concern. Is that 50-acre parcel adjacent to other preserved farms?
Yes, it is, and it was also, I think, ranked as the number 5 farm for the 2018 program, and they've gone from one of the farms withdrew, but they've gone from the ranking from 2 through 13, so there's a total of 12 farms. But the Jaeger farm that I talked to, which is the split, was in the top, number of farms.
Okay. Just to make sure we're still conforming to the general outlines of doing this in a way that isn't just going to create a bigger financial problem down the road. So,
Gary, that farm, the Jaeger farm, which I think you're talking about, Jim, does butt up against the Ryan Brown farm, which was preserved the prior year, which was also co-broke with Silver Spring.
Okay.
And the other farms that you were talking about are the one that would actually be adjacent to this new block, so to speak. So that's what they're really trying to do, which is a good question. When they ask the same thing, or he's pointed out these two farms are together.
It was also discussed yesterday, while Silver Spring is the only municipality so far that's established or voted on a referendum to provide for a new revenue source for farmland preservation in Silver Spring Township itself. There also has been, as I understand, Southampton Township has provided some assistance to help preserve farm down there too. But again, what's good about the Silver Spring effort, which was approved by the citizens of Silver Spring Township, is it helps to supplement what we can account for when we send our numbers into the state, so that we get even more funding back from the state. So, one of the ways I think that we achieve this goal is to try to continue to look at other entities that might be interested in participating, do our part in terms of county funding commitment, and then also look at other things that we're moving forward, the Lancaster Farmland Trust, and trying to see what we can do in partnership with other improve. So I think we're on the right track. I mean, you know, with our commitment this past year, this year, you know, we moved up in ranking in terms of our county compared to other counties in the state. And we're making progress. And the question is, are we making it fast enough? And, you know, we just need to continue to focus on how can we get there. And I know, I would like us to actually have a finance committee discussion of this. Maybe invite the following folks in, and anybody else who wants to comment on this subject. But I think it's important because if you look back at the survey done in conjunction with a comprehensive plan, this was a priority of our citizens. And I think it's important for us to recognize that and do what we can. That's not mean it's the only priority. We know we have
I'll just add that I think the approach of recruiting additional partners so that we're not carrying the entire burden is a very admirable one. I've frankly said all along that most municipalities are not doing their fair share of this, and they're looking at the county exclusively. So Silver Spring is taking a clear lead in this, by actually putting their money where their mouths are. Yeah. And that's good. I think we're going to need to see more of that. The question I have is to make that happen, are we doing what, for instance, what the state does is incentivize us by providing a bigger match if we put one in. Are our policies in any way incentivizing municipalities by pledging a bigger role for the county in those cases where there is a local partner?
It's a good question, and there may be room to do that. I know that, with respect to Silver Spring, of course, this was one of the leaders in that effort. But it really was if I, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was really a citizens movement, right? Now, at the end of the day, I guess the township put the question on the ballot.
Yeah, we did.
So the township supervisors put the question on the ballot. But at the end of the day, it was a decision by the people. So, maybe there's
a we should do with the county.
Well, what's that?
Which, as you know, I have said that would be the approach I would prefer we take at the county level as well.
I just don't think we have the authority to do that. But anyway, we have to discuss that with them. But that would be something that maybe we could help to do our part in suggesting to the residents who live in those other municipalities, which still have a significant number of acres of farm, to consider because it definitely is going to benefit the overall goal. Now, do I think it's necessarily great that we have to take an earned income tax to do that? No, but this would be up to the people to decide.
I have no questions. I guess I'll go ahead with my reports. And I don't have a whole lot here. There's just one full items. I did share with you earlier in the week the update Justin Miller had given me regarding the recycling event. I'm sorry, household hazardous waste event that was held last Saturday, but for the benefit of others, I'll just go ahead and list some quick results there. That was held Saturday, and it was 9 to 3. Justin said they have 1,083 vehicles, and that is the third highest count they've had. So, and this event is held annually, so there's some pent-up demand, but it's not like our electronics recycling where people had to hold this stuff for years and years. We do hold this annually, but we have a lot of households in this county. They're still generating a lot of waste that can't just go into the regular waste stream. So this is a valuable event. 1,083 cars, and the amount of material was 121,542. 121,542. That is the highest rate ever. So even though we had the third highest car count, we had the highest amount of material in poundage that's been dropped off. So most of it was paint and paint related at 74,828 pounds, and that was followed by pesticides, 14,509. Obviously, things that we don't want people disposing of incorrectly. So this event continues to prove its value, and kudos to them. And that's a wise choice to continue offering that, even though in recent years we've had to cut back some of the events and such that they've offered in the past. This was a smart move. Only other thing I have is from the planning department. Kirk mentioned that, so they had a meeting on Tuesday with PennDOT to review the widening report of I-81, which I'm very aware of. So the formal report will be released later in the fall. Yeah, but Kirk said they are planning to continue working with HATS and the PennDOT contingent to develop a strategy for moving at least the priority items, identifying priority items and moving them forward for a rather ambitious goal. We're going to have to focus in on those things that are achievable and work very hard to get those done. But they're actively engaged in that issue as we have asked them today. Also, next week they're going to be reviewing the land partnership applications, and Kirk reports they have 10 applications. This, of course, addresses parks, trails, greenways, natural resources, and has been a successful program in the past. They have 5 applications also for the new planning grant program. That was, you'll recall, the money that was previously devoted toward our participation in Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, for which we candidly received very little benefit, has now been redirected, courtesy of the Board of Commissioners, into new planning grants to help our municipalities meet their compliance needs, but also to just enhance their general planning capabilities, which is where this battle is won. So,
You said we had 5 applications?
5 applications, right, and it's $50,000, so it's not a huge amount, but it certainly is going to help a number of the municipalities who otherwise would struggle to find the money to get their planning documents updated and really move the ball forward on the issue. So that's a good start. This is the first year for that. $50,000 is not a huge amount of money, but Kirk believes that this will be a very high return for the per dollar, considering the things that we do, that this is a very good investment. So he's continued to express gratitude to the Board of Commissioners in his conversations with me that we saw fit to redirect these dollars into a more productive manner. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to report that an executive session was held on August 22nd, 2018 at 11 a.m. regarding personnel issues. I'd also like to request an executive session be held directly after this meeting regarding personnel issues. The other business we've already covered with respect to Claremont and the long-term care grant. So is there any other business to come before the commissioners today?
Just a comment, again, welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Godspeed. All right, hearing no other business to come forward, I will, we are adjourned and we will be reconvening